So my name's Curtis Daniel III. I'm one of the two owners of Patchwork Recording Studios. I started working here way back in 1995. Keyshawn, what year were you born in?
94.
94. And tell them who you are, man.
Well, my name is Keyshawn Terrell D. Gillum, and I am from Lansing, Michigan. And I work here at Patchwork Recording Studios doing video content, video, photos, media, all of that.
And so we here today. It's like our little behind the scenes of because we pretty soon we just kind of put a button. For the most part, we got some more work to do on our 25th anniversary documentary that you did, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, when did we start talking about doing the 25th anniversary documentary?
Probably the year before, on the 24th, and during the 24th anniversary. A little bit after that, it was right before the NFL season, and you told me Bob was coming and I should be prepared. And that's when we kind of started hinting at that we need to do a documentary for the 25th.
So then, how long would you say you've been working on it?
I've been working on it for, that was 2019, so unknowingly kind of building up to it, pre-production 2019, shooting a bunch of interviews between then and through 2020, to editing through 2020, to finishing in 2021, so almost 3 years.
So on there, why you think I trusted you to do the documentary?
I have no idea. I have no idea at all. It's a conundrum.
You have no idea?
I mean, I just thought, that's my job, I guess. But yeah, I don't really know. I didn't really think too deep of anyone trusting me to do it. I just thought I was doing my job.
So you don't know, but why do you think I allowed you or wanted you to do it?
Because it needed to be done.
You think so, huh? Okay. So I thought about it, like I thought it was a big deal. I mean, we did a documentary kind of like at our 10 year. I think I had Jason do that one. Then I think Jason might have did our 20 or 15. I forgot the last time we done them. But I always think it's important to have somebody that's shooting and editing that kind of knows the business and know the history. I mean, because I think you get a little bit more intangibles, you get a little bit more feeling and stuff to it. And so, when you kind of started here, you always curious. You always was curious about what the old place looked like and what it smelled like and what the pictures, and man, tell me stories about this. And every time I see you running around, you talking to people trying to find out all this stuff that happened in the history and reading the website and all this stuff. So the first thing was, the curiosity factor that even though you weren't working on the documentary your early years, you was always inquiring about the history and trying to talk to people and learn stories. And you was begging to know stories and see pictures and all this stuff. And so I was like, he's really inquisitive, so he really want to know. That was kind of like the first indication. And then it was kind of like seeing the work over the years, going from the dark night, to the light the place up, to the editing, to the music, and then building. I don't think that you could have done it, your first couple years, because you didn't have all the relationships with the people that work here, and you didn't have the relationships with all the clients. But by you shooting all of those I Do Music podcasts, you build relationships with the guests, doing all of the workshops, all of the videos and the different things that we do here, you start building relationships. So I thought you'd be able to tell the story. Going through that process, why did it take so long, and why was it so hard?
It took long for me personally because I think I overestimated the project and I overestimated myself, because I thought I could make it easily because it was something I actually wanted to do. But as I started getting into it, I started realizing this is a lot of footage. This is a lot of talking points. There's a lot of different stories within the story. So for me, it took a long time because I got lost a lot. I got lost in how to build out a flow from beginning, middle, and end and actually make it make sense. So while I was editing it, while I was putting just the interviews together, individual interviews, it was like all the interviews were over an hour long almost, to the point where we got like almost 20 different people talking, and they're each over an hour long. But the original documentary, like the most original one, that was like almost 8 hours long that I put together. And then I was like, okay, I gotta take this 8 hours down. And it got to the 4 hours. Originally, it was like 8 hours of content within like the actual documentary itself. And that was after I broke it down, trying to put together a good flow from all the interviews. And then the B-roll was the hardest part, because it was like, okay, I finally found the flow and the beginning, middle, and end of how the story will go. Now, how do I fill it in with pictures or videos or just content that actually goes with what the people are talking about? And a lot of it was from the past, so that was the harder part, just collecting the content to throw on to the documentary.
So then on there, I remember, like you said, I think the first couple of interviews, I just kind of put you in here and y'all was talking. And then it was a point where I realized that we needed to kind of tell a story. So then that's when we came up with the
question,
about 19 questions, right? And so I remember when we did all of that, then we had these interviews with 19, 20 people. There's like an hour and 15, 20 minutes long. So then our next thing was, we decided that we should break them down by each question. Mm-hmm. So we put every person and just put the question in there. And then we went through, well, you remember the process then? How do so then you sent me the videos, and then we went through each question and we
picked the best one.
To pick the person that answered the question the best. Then from the best, we had to go in and take out all the BS and whatever, and try to put it together, whatever. So how was that? Did that help? I mean,
it helped. It was annoying, because it was just like, it was like, man, it's tedious. It was very tedious. And working with you're very, I won't say you're a perfectionist, but you kind of know what you want, and what you want is very detailed, to the point where someone could think he's just looking for perfect, but you're just looking for accurate. And accuracy is hard when you're getting different people's perspectives, because none of them are technically wrong. It's just, like you said, which one describes what we're trying to show the people the most.
So then on there, so what did you learn? I mean, what did you learn sitting in there? I mean, and hearing all that history, or what was kind of like, was it some aha moments, or like, I didn't know that, or?
All of it was aha moments. It was all aha moments. They was all like, it was very enlightening, because I always looked at, when I found out, because when I first got to Patchogue, I thought this was the only thing that ever was here. For 25 years, I thought this was the only building here. So when I kept hearing people say the first Patchogue, the old Patchogue, I was thinking that they were just talking about, back in the day, but y'all was still at this building.
Right.
So when I found out, no, it's a completely different building, I was like, what? It's like learning that at first the Avengers started at, Iron Man's mansion, and then they got Iron Man's tall building. It's like there's two different eras. You got the Avengers that started in the mansion, that was at just their house, that was Tony Stark's house, and then you got the Avengers that are at the actual headquarters that's in the middle of New York City. So I looked at it like that. I was like, wow, like there was a whole nother story behind all this. This wasn't the beginning. And I got interested in how it started, so I learned how it all started. I learned how people really hustled at the very beginning. Like, some of my favorite interviews was probably like Jarvis, the first engineer, because it's like, wow, you're the first. It's always cool to meet the first hero.
Right.
So it's like, wow, the first engineer that started it all. Then Calfani, Erica, like those are some of my favorite interviews, because it was like, man, they put me right in the thick of what it was. The whole time they were talking about it, I was like, wow, I feel like I'm living through what they're telling me, the recount. So I learned, it was very humbling too. Like, I learned a lot of humbleness through their stories, through everybody's interviews. Like, even the young bloods, like how they was talking about how they first started before they had a record deal to when they got a record deal and could work in here more. It was like very humbling to just hear about that process, because I grew up listening to the young bloods. Right. So I learned a lot. It's so many lessons in it that it would take forever for me to deconstruct it, but if I could boil it down, I feel like I would say that I learned humbleness and patience and respect.
So then on there, then like if you stepping back now, that have you watched it all the way through, or you just kind of put it together, or had you sat back and watched it yet, or seen it, or?
I've watched a little bit of it. I kind of took a break because I've been watching it so much, just editing it, so I haven't tried to watch it all the way through yet. But I probably watched like the first 20 minutes of it, because that describes like the very beginning and the old studio, which was like my favorite part, of course. So I'll probably watch that, and then I watched like the last 20 minutes of the ending. And I watched it like that because I felt like the middle was so strong that I kind of wasn't too worried about it. I always feel like what makes or breaks your film is how you start the film off or how you end the film. You can have a great movie all the way up until the end and it was like, well, that was pointless, that was stupid. Or you could have a great movie, but it has a slow start that makes people not even want to see how great it can become. So those are my most important things that I've watched, and it's really interesting to see it.
So then in the documentary, what, I guess if you was looking at it, what story did it tell? I mean, what was the, what did it say? I mean, for you, what will people learn, or what are they going to get out of it, or what kind of feeling is it going to give people, do you think?
I think the feeling that this Patchwork 25th anniversary documentary will give people is just a feeling of grace, a feeling that is like almost thankful. Because when I watched it, I was just, towards the end, I felt just very thankful. I just felt like, wow, like so many people have given everything to make this still stand the test of time. And it's a beautiful poem in my eyes. It's like, I really don't know too many places, especially black places, that have stood the test of time with so many positive comments added to it. And it's like, I don't really know anybody that hates the studio, and if they hate it, I know they hate it because it didn't work for them, or they didn't make it work for them. They tried to misuse the studio or tried to screw over the studio. So of course they don't like it, but it's like, well, what did you do? So all the people that remember the studio fondly, they did something good, and something good came to them through the work they put in. And I think that's why I feel like it will give people a feeling of grace, because it's like, when you treat somebody good, normally they're gonna treat you good. And the people that treated Patchwork good, I feel like all of them had good things that happened to them for the most part. Like, they all have careers. They all was able to make a living. They was all able to do something to chase their dreams, and that's pretty dope.
So then on here too, so like a lot of times, we've had kind of like outside people that take a look at it that say they think it'll work good on this network or can be whatever. But my thing has always been, most of these people always think that you got to have some type of drama or some celebrity name attached to it. Did you approach it like as the studio is the star, or the story is the story, or what kind of place do you think that this story could be aired at? Like, is it on the network? Is it on the movie screen? Is it video on demand? Is it on YouTube? And then being that it's 4 hours, we still hadn't figured out how we gonna, what is it gonna be, segments or series, a 6-part episode, or what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I start with the first part on, did I present Patchwork as a star, or did I feel like I had to? And I did. I felt my actual structure of this documentary was very heavily inspired by the Clarence Avant documentary on Netflix, which I was inspired to really watch that after speaking with Arlinda Garrett, because she was his assistant. And so when she said that to me like a long time ago, I was like, what? I saw his name on Netflix. And I watched his documentary. I was like, wow, this guy is dope. Never even knew he existed. And it made me realize, man, I used to think that same thing about Patchwork. Like, when I walked in here, I was like, wow, didn't even know this place existed. So I felt like if I borrowed from the elements that I watched with the Clarence Avant documentary, where even though it's about one man, the star of that documentary isn't necessarily Clarence Avant the person, it's Clarence Avant and his actions, Clarence Avant and his impact. That was more of the focus of that documentary. So I was like, okay, the focus of the Patchwork documentary has to be the focus on the impact of patchwork, the effects of patchwork, not just the technology of patchwork, because that did impact it, or just the celebrities that came here, because that did impact it, but all the celebrities weren't celebrities at one point.
Right.
There was just independent people trying to become celebrities, trying to chase their dreams. And that's what made Patchwork impactful, and that's what I wanted to focus on, was why the studio, if that makes sense.
We still working on how we gonna display this, how we gonna, I
Yeah.
mean, what are you know, because I want to do a premiere, but I'm like, people ain't gonna sit in there for 4 hours, so what
I feel like that for a 4-hour documentary, because the Clarence Avamont's like 2 hours or something like that. I sat through that whole thing. I'm one of those people that like Lord of the Rings and stuff, so I'm used to sitting through like 3-hour movies and stuff. So I know most people wouldn't want to do that, but I do know if you really are interested in something, you're gonna watch the whole thing. And I feel like for this, it could be cut up into like 4 different parts, 45-minute episodes, like how we talked about it, like the Michael Jordan Last Dance kind of thing, or the No Limit series where it's episode to episode. Or it could be a thing where the whole 4-hour documentary is out there on something like an Amazon or a Netflix, because I do feel like there's plenty of documentaries that's 3-4 hours long out here that are critically acclaimed and got awards. So if people are interested, they'll watch it. And I think this is a very interesting story, because what other studios or companies are out there that have done what y'all have done?
And I think that impacted the outcome of it, because we weren't making it for entertainment or for hype, like, you know what I mean? Like it's like, that's why I always tell people I really don't care where it's at. I just want it well done, to kind of timestamp history, and the people that are interested into it, they'll sit there and watch it. The people that ain't, I ain't gonna say we didn't make it for them, but I don't think that influenced your work, right? And then did it help not having a hard deadline or timeline, just being able to work and be finished when you was done?
Well, I think having the time to work on it did help, because we was able to get more content from people that took their time to send stuff in, or even like finally getting with BJ, and BJ had like the holy grail of content and just history from pictures and stuff like that. So I didn't get that till I was already like an hour deep into building out the story. And then he gave me all his stuff, and I was like, oh man, I can go back now and start filling in the beginning. And then even speaking with other people that had their opinions on it, I took some of their advice, and I was able to see it from their eyes, and was like, okay, I literally deleted everything that I had made, like 20 minutes worth, and started all the way over, just because I was like, okay, I know I can make this better. So having the time to just fix on it and look at my own mistakes and breathe, let it breathe for a second, rewatch it and be like, oh, that's not it, or oh, this is it, or let me keep this, nah, let me take that out. That definitely helped. I feel like if you take your time on anything, you can only get better when that's the goal. So
what finally made you stop chopping on the wood to be like, this is it? How do you know when to end?
I knew how to end the documentary with Bob. That's what made me like realize, okay, this is enough. Because I started the documentary with Bob, and I thought the way I tried to set it up, almost like a home video. Because when we shot Bob, it was actually for the Super Bowl. He was doing something, and I wasn't thinking. You was thinking of the documentary. I wasn't. And you was like, you better get him, Keyshawn, because we'll never see him again. He'll never be back here. And I was like, what? It's Bob. He'll come back. And she was like, no, you won't get him. And I was like, okay. So I'm glad I did, because he never came back. Right. And so when I shot him, I didn't have like microphones and mic'd up or anything, or the best lighting. It was just kind of like, running gun type of shooting. So that his interview, even though it was the strongest because he's the originator, it was also kind of the weakest visually. So I kind of played into that by not having them through the whole documentary and only having them started off and ended. But I started it off almost like you can hear my voice, and it's just almost like you're watching a home video. The camera's all moving around and shaking, and it's just like, what is all this? So I feel like I knew how to end it, how to be like, okay, I'm done, when I got to the point where I was like, okay, this is how Bob can wrap up the whole story.
All right, then last thing, what all the roles did you play in this, making this?
You know, I feel like I have a problem when it comes to
So you shot it, you edited, you asked the questions, you gathered all the pictures, all the videos, you got the drone footage. What else? You're gonna be responsible for when we put this music into it.
The music, color correcting, just I guess the pre-mix of the audio, even though Luther's gonna do the final one, just bouncing out the audio from all the guests. I guess directing the whole thing. Pretty much being like the DP, the editor, the producer, director, all in one for this documentary. Even like I guess a co-scripter, since the script was kind of already there, and then your questions helped it. And it was pretty much everything. Like, I really didn't have too much help on it other than the people that sent in actual photos or videos, and then your questions kind of structuring it out, and then of course you getting a guest. So other than those three main things, and then of course Erica actually scanning the photos. So shout out to Erica, because we needed those photos scanned. So out of those four things, I didn't do any of that, but everything else to make a documentary, I pretty much did.
So if it's dope, he did everything. If you don't like it,
Yeah,
he did everything. All right, man. Well, anything else you want to say about it, or in closing?
I guess I just want to say thank you to literally all the people that like donated all their old photos, or I was texting people like, hey, can you send me this? And they would actually send it. Or I know BJ, he was very, very particular about his stuff, and I was able to borrow a lot of his things for a little bit longer than I should have maybe. But I really want to thank people, because this was a team effort. Even though I did a lot of things on my own, I couldn't have made this happen without all the people that literally came before me. Even though there's like a media department that I built here, there was already people doing stuff like Jason or Maya, or all the way to Mr. Soul, that was doing creative media stuff that was the basis of what is now a media department, where we offer photos, videos, or graphic design. So it's really just a thank you to everybody, like even all the way down to Raz. Like without Razcast, there wouldn't have been an idea to be like, let's start a studio and like really invest, to even, you know, your parents that you talk about.
Can you tell us why Raz ain't on the documentary?
Man, Raz ain't on the documentary because every single time I try to get him to come to the studio to interview him,
he was in Atlanta?
He was in Atlanta.
And y'all had an appointment?
And I went to try to get him like 3 times, and the guy just was like, oh, I'm asleep, man. I had a heavy night. And it's like, okay, Raz. But he's the person I really wanted in there, because he's the only voice that's missing. And that's the one, if I have any regret about this documentary, is that I couldn't put Razcast in it. So I made sure he was known. I put as many dope photos as I could, and people talked about him all through the story. But it was just like he was a ghost. I hated that. But yeah, thanks everybody. This is gonna be dope.
Peace.
Peace.